Welcome back. This is my Woodpecker's router lift that I bought probably about 12 or 13 years ago. It was one of my first major woodworking purchases, and it's really turned out to be a real good machine or device. Had very little problems with it. The router did sit in the opening a little tiny bit off center, which didn't allow it to work well with another type of a jig that I bought, but I was able to space that over and eliminate that problem. But that's not why we're here. An ongoing problem I've had ever since I owned this machine was the bit lifting as I was making a cut, and I've spoiled a lot of wood with that particular problem. I always blamed myself. I always thought, well, I didn't clean out the collet. There's some crud in there. I didn't tighten it down well enough, and so I'd take the bit out and set the whole thing back up again, and usually I wouldn't have any problem after that. Well, yesterday I was cutting some lock miters, and as I was doing so, I noticed things were starting to go awry once again. But at the same time, I also noticed that this dial, which indicates how far you're raising or lowering the bit by placing the crank in this socket here, this opening, hex opening, you turn this and it causes the whole lift to raise up and down, and also this dial to turn. It's graduated in, I think, 30 seconds of an inch. Well, as I was cutting today, I noticed this thing is turning at about this speed right here. And I thought, well, maybe this Phillips screw had come loose and I needed to tighten that. Well, that was not the case. The entire router lift, due to the vibration, there's a little bit of vibration when you go into these larger bits. It isn't evident when you're using a 3/4 inch plunge bit or something like that, or something of small diameter. This large bit, there is some vibration, and it was causing this entire mechanism to turn on its own and raise the bit. So I took it apart, and this is what I did. I took a piece of maple strap, turn around here, and made a break for the lift mechanism. So it was pretty simple, just a piece of hardwood. I use maple because I happen to have some. I've got a lot of red oak too, but it's brittle and tends to crack. So I like the maple better for things like this. Drilled a couple holes here, and it drilled a couple matching holes in the router table, and drilled and tapped them 1/4-20 threads. These are just some pieces of aluminum tube that I had laying on my scrap pile. Don't even know where they came from. Cut a slot right here on the bandsaw, and put you can see it back there. There's a T-nut there. And over on the other side, I took an old Chinese socket out of my junk pile. It's 3/8 drive, or 3/8 hex, which is the same size as the router lift handle. So it can go right in here. Trying to focus the camera and put there at the same time, and I can tighten down on this drum here that is part of the router lift. Now, when Woodpecker built this, what they did is underneath this, I'll call it a drum for lack of a better description, it is drilled around its periphery with little dimples, little holes, and on the opposing side of that there are ball bearings, and as you turn this with the crank, it registers in those little ball bearings and is supposed to keep it from turning, but it isn't very effective. As I found out, it'll still turn on its own. So with this gizmo here that I invented, I can go ahead and lock this thing down securely to eliminate the router lifting and spoiling more and more material. So I went ahead and underneath here drilled a hole in the face of my router tables so the handle can pass through here and engage into this socket, and that way I don't have to reach under or anything, so it's a little bit more convenient to use. So I think this is going to work. I haven't used it yet. I have to recut my lock miters as soon as I'm done with this, and we'll see how it works out. But I see no reason why it shouldn't work out fine. Once I do crank this down tight, just laying here on the table, it will not turn. So I can go and turn it with the crank handle, but it takes a great deal of effort, so it's not going to turn on its own from vibration. So this is my solution to this problem. I know that there's probably 100 different router lifts on there, and I know that Woodpeckers is still one of them. I don't know if they're building this particular lift anymore. Like I say, I've had it for well, the date on the bottom indicates that it was made 13 years ago, so I've had it at least that long, I'm sure. But if anybody has had this problem with the Woodpecker lift, I'd urge you to go ahead and make up something like this. It only took me a couple of hours, and I think it's a pretty good solution to this problem. So until the next problem crops up its ugly head, this is it for now. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you all later.